See you soon.
He's a singer, and he's a man that can shake, rattle, and roll. And he takes us down memory lane week after week with Where Are They Now? And the song of the week. To finish the show, it's our pop encyclopedia, Shane.
Shane!
How are you, mate?
Hales.
Oh, good to see you.
Ooh. Hey, this
Blue
is...
shirt. You're looking so well. That blue suits you.
Oh, thank you,
You
Shane.
obviously know that.
You haven't mentioned this blue shirt one more time.
Never say it. Never again. Blue socks.
Shane, what an exciting week. Tomorrow you're off to Wellington.
Yes.
The investiture.
It's been a logistical nightmare of getting
Mum
my
down
dear
there.
old mum, you know. She's 96 and getting her on the plane and everything and flying her down, and she's got the fur coat, she's got the whole bit. Woo, look out. She's going to be the star, obviously. And my eldest daughter, Katie.
Now just stop there. I could just, because
Yeah.
I know your mum. I know your mum so well. But when you said she's going to be the star, she's got the fur coat, that makes me laugh because
That's going to be it.
she's going to love this, isn't she?
She's going to command, but it's going to be a Royal Command performance.
Her boy is getting
Yeah, I know.
medal.
I'm very concerned, actually.
So, that's great.
She's going to be, she's you know, big moment for her and for all of us. And
Yeah.
I am thrilled we've got 4 generations of the family standing there.
Yeah, so-
My eldest daughter, Katie,
Yeah.
and my eldest granddaughter, Maya. And then I've got, you know, my mother, 96.
Yeah, and Margaret, of course.
And Margaret will be with us.
Yeah.
And so there's 5 of us, and we're flying down all together.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Don't
tomorrow
miss
morning.
the plane, Shane, for your investiture.
We're okay because the investiture is Wednesday, so I'm not so bad.
Oh, okay.
So we've got overnight, as long as we don't party up too hard the night before. And I have to be there at 9:20 a.m., so myself and seated. And then the guests come in after that, around about 9:30 and 1:45. I think the ceremony starts at 10 a.m. And it's all over by midday, apparently. And by then we've had a cup of tea and a few
And a
cakes
biscuit.
and a biscuit or something. I'm not sure what.
At the
And
taxpayer's expense.
At the taxpayer's expense, I will make sure I'll endeavour to eat as many biscuits as possible. And so will my family. Peggy will, I'll keep her quiet. Have another one.
Have another biscuit, Mum.
But yeah, she's looking forward to it, so it's going to be quite an extravaganza. And then I'm staying over, of course, and they're flying back, Mum and the kids and so on. And I'm staying over with Margaret, and we're going to Government House for a dinner that evening, which is such an honour, and I'm thrilled. And you know, a little bit nervous actually. Make sure I use the right spoon, the right fork, and the knife. And I've had so much advice on Facebook.
Now
what not to do and what to
Shane,
do.
oh, the knife is the thing that you use to cut the meat with,
Yeah,
and
not
the
throw at
fork,
the wall.
and the fork is the thing you actually, put the fork into the
Is it?
meat, and then
Yeah.
you slice it with the knife. Okay.
So there's no using your fingers, no finger bowls or anything. Get me the bone. Yeah.
Before we go on, Shane, very quickly, were you playing next this week? Sorry.
Well, we've just played, of course, we did the Derry
Flat,
Flats
that went
Hall,
great.
the Stetson Club. Fantastic. They always make us so welcome there. And then this week we're at the Unihunga Working Men's Club, which I haven't played with this band there probably for 15 years. I haven't played there.
Wow.
So I'm quite a thrill to be back there, and it's a rendezvous. I think it's a singles night, actually. So all you single people, come along and see this old married man. But anyway, it should be a great night.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I've got creeping up right behind that is Wongaparoa, the RSA, the Hibiscus Coast RSA on the 16th. And that's great to be back there again now because they've just given it a big relaunch, and I want to sing their praises because it's a great club.
Is this Silverdale or the Hype?
They used to call it not Silverdale, used to be called the something, but they changed it to the Hibiscus Coast Friendly RSA or something, but I don't know why
Sounds
they
more
changed.
upmarket, doesn't it?
Yeah, when it's working, let it work. You know,
Yeah.
don't change the name. It's like changing the beat goes on till the beat's gone off. You know, so it's ridiculous.
Thank you,
isn't it? Oh, let's get on.
Shane, everything you've said pales into insignificance compared to
Song of the week, and I have to say it's a beauty. But what's happened is another great has passed by, and he's not really, not very, I was going to say very and really at the same time. He's not really. He's not renowned for his singing ability. Anyone would say, oh, Jerry Lewis. I mean, he just passed away at the age of 91.
Does he actually sing?
He had a top album in the charts in 1956.
Wow.
On Billboard magazine of standards, you know, how long has this been going on, that song, Old Man River and things like this, and Birth of the Blues. And to listen to the album, it's you can hear it on the internet, on YouTube and things. Really good. It's a good album. And you can see why. I mean, he was at the top of his game in 1956.
But was he competing with Dean Martin right at that time?
No, because Dino, they hadn't split at the time. They split round about 1956. It was just when he split up not long after. I think Dino thought, geez, now he's got a top album and I'm not even getting there yet and I'm a much better singer. So he wanted to leave.
Because I see Dean Martin as the singer, not
He
Jerry
was the
Lewis.
singer, and he always was the straight man, the singer and everything else. But he actually had a pretty good voice, as did his father when he started out. And Jerry Lewis.
Oh, who was his father?
Well, his father was called Danny Lewis.
Danny, no.
And he was a vaudeville singer. This is through the 30s and 40s, and that's where he grew up. And of course, he was born, 1926. So in the early 30s, at 5 years old, 1931, Jerry Lewis actually got his first break, and he went on stage with his parents and started part of the vaudeville act because his mother was a piano player on a radio station. And in those days, there was no, not lots of DJs playing records and ads and things. It was all very staid, and you took them in the studio and you had Gene Autry and guys singing on the radio. Everyone sang live. And it was the same with his mother. She was the piano player on the radio station. So Jerry got his first laugh really on stage when he was 5 years old, and he got into tap dancing. He learnt the drums. He really learnt a lot of instruments, a trumpet, and all sorts of things. And he was doing his tap dance on there with mum and dad, and he's doing his little tap dance. He spun around, got very ambitious, and he spun around, and he kicked one of the lights out, one of the footlights. And everyone laughed and thought it was part of the show because he got such a fright. Oh! And he pulled that face, Jerry Lewis's face. And so he got his first laugh and thought, oh, I like that. Yeah. So he became the clown, a bit of a clown. And by the time he was 15, he developed this act of his own vaudeville act, variety sort of show, and he mimed to records. He'd go out there, and that's when he learned to pull all the faces. And people used to find it hysterical, they used to laugh their heads off. Had this guy out there miming records and going, and he learned all these strange faces, and so that's what made him so popular at that stage. Until he managed to make a living. School was over. He didn't want to know about school. 15 years old, he said, I'm out of here. I'm not interested in going to university, studying or anything. I'm going to be in showbiz like my dad, and so on. So he was very happy with that, and he left his father. But what happened was he went out on the nightclub circuit on his own, and it was a real bitsy old, a poor man's nightclub circuit, I'd say, in those days. It was pretty hard work and yucky, And he met Dean Martin on a show when he was 19. They were both on the same bill. And this is 1946 now, just after the war. Yeah. He'd been turned down in the army.
This was 1 year before I was born,
Yeah,
Shane.
well, same year I was born. So he's already making a name for himself. What did I say? He got turned down by the army because he had a heart murmur. So he didn't go out to fight or join the army or anything else. He was dismissed. Go away, you've got a heart murmur, you're going to collapse on us, This is when he discovered he had a heart problem. Yeah. And he had a lot of ailments right through his life and so on, but we'll get to those. So anyway...
Speaking of ailments, we did mention that for the one person that doesn't know that Jerry Lewis died this week.
Oh, he died, yeah. He passed away.
Did we mention that?
Yeah, at the beginning, Jerry Lewis, of course, passed away.
People were wondering, what are we talking about Jerry Lewis for?
Well, Jerry Lewis passed away, of course. I'll redo it again. But he passed away this week, and it was through a heart problem again. Basically, the blood doesn't go there, it can't get enough blood into the heart to push it through the veins, so the heart's just sort of getting real tired, Yeah. And of course,
look, you could have said it, Shane. You could have said it, Shane, and I missed it. So,
you probably missed it, I think. Anyway, but here we are.
Here we go.
We digress.
Carry on.
Yeah, a little bit of heart stuff for you.
That was a heart-stopping moment.
It was a heart-stopping moment. Yes. He's a funny boy. Now, where were we? But anyway, heart ailments, etc., and all that sort of stuff. He met Dean Martin. They were both on the same bill at this nightclub because they'd have a variety show, have a magician and a singer and a comedian, you know, and this strange act that Jerry Lewis had. And they got on like a house on fire. They met and they said, hey, mate, yeah, we should do something together, because they were both struggling musicians. And Dean Martin's 9 years older than Jerry Lewis, so he was 28 when they met.
Oh, okay.
He's 28 years old, and he's struggling on the old cabaret circuit. And he still has it. He used to be a boxer. If you watch Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis always is behind Dean Martin, alluding to his nose. He'll always be going, chop, chop, all these sort of things, you know, which are classic. And Dean Martin's just the straight man standing there singing his song, and everyone's laughing, knowing that he had his nose chopped. But it's always a funny moment. And that's how the classic Martin and Lewis thing started in 1946. Anyway, they got a big job at the 500 Club in Atlantic City. Now,
the 500 Club.
This is Atlantic City, was a budding gambling sort of place, just starting out, and trying to compete with Las Vegas, which was in its early days as well. So they're there, and they get this big gig at the 500 Club, and the place is packed, and out they come, and they bomb. They spent, 6 months writing scripts and getting it all organised. They had everything scripted. They came on and did all their jokes, and nothing worked. It just went downhill. They died a death. And the guy was going to fire him. He said, that's it, forget it, mate. You two, out of here. You're no good, you know, you're bombed. Yeah. And they said, please, 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 give us another chance. Just give us one more chance. He said, okay, I'll give you one more week. And at the end of that week, if you haven't gone down and people are still booing and rubbishing you, you're out. Anyway, they talked themselves into the job. By the end of that week, what they did, instead of writing, they threw the script away. That ain't working. What should we do? He said, we'll ad lib tonight. We'll just go on and hope that we can get through it, you know. And Dino went out to the straight man, started singing. Of course, everyone saw this sexy guy, the Italiano thing. Yeah. And you saw this monkey behind him going, you know, dropping plates and throwing shit. And he was just making it up as he went. They said, it went down a storm. Everyone was laughing their heads off and thought, this is fantastic. So he kept them on. Now, only took a year. In 1947, a year later, they were resident at the Copacabana in New York, earning $30,000 a week.
I told you that
between them.
47 was a good year.
So 15 grand each they were earning within a year, just through teaming up. Yet the guy was going to fire them on their first gig because it was so bad.
Wonderful story.
And I love that, you know, and it's like overcoming everything, you know, all the adversity, they came through. And of course then they got a couple of bit parts that became very popular, Copacabana, everyone knew about Martin and Lewis, as they were calling themselves. And by 1949 they'd had a couple of bit parts, you know, cameo roles in movies, and they went down good in the movies, and they saw that they had a lot of potential, you know. So the director gets up there, and Paramount signs them up and says, we want you to make some movies. So by 1950, they'd made their first big movie. Paramount signed them up to a deal and said, we want you to make some movies for us as Martin and Lewis, you know, starring Martin and Lewis and so on.
But of course, Shane, things wear thin, don't they? They wear thin.
Well, look at you, me. We've been together. 20 years now, isn't it? I mean,
on the show,
and it's wearing thin. I can tell you.
Very thin.
Nah. You're comic relief for me. Nah, I love you. We're mates. Mates till the end. Now, we're digressing again.
Digressing.
But talking about Martin and Lewis. What happens for 1956, by 1956, you see all these movies, they're being huge successes and everyone's going to see them, and they're the kings of comedy at this time. And they also have a TV show, the Colgate half-hour thing, which I've got a whole lot of those at home. Whoa. They're absolutely hilarious, you know. And you've got all these special guests came on, and Dino would always do his song. And I love them. And I watch them every now and again. I get them out, and I bore the guests and say, oh, you've got to see this.
That's the night I go home early, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the night you leave. You say, oh, I'm going home now. Good night, Shane. Leaves me sitting there with Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis. But anyway, apart from that, they were doing fantastic things. And 1956, what happened was Dean, he was getting left out of the movies slowly but surely. He was getting less and less lines. It was a slow thing. It progressed slowly. You know, it just sort of crept up upon them. And Jerry Lewis was getting all the limelight because he was hilarious and he'd do all the clown stuff, and that was what was so popular. And Dean would do the song and just stand there and it was always, He was always the ladies' man in the movie. And it was, Jerry was always the, hey lady, you know, man, and crazy guy who couldn't chat up a woman in a fit, you know. Yeah. So what happens is Dino's getting a bit upset about this, and he's starting to feel a bit left out of this. And it hit rock bottom when there's a magazine, a big national magazine called Look magazine. Remember that magazine? You might remember from your childhood. I don't know if you saw it in Huntley, but you wouldn't have it in a milk bar in Huntley, would you?
Look magazine.
But I remember that magazine, Look, and it was always about the movie stars.
It wasn't good enough to be in Huntley.
Big cover, you know, beautiful that night, bigger than A4, about nice big picture on the front cover. And they were doing a cover story on Jerry Lewis and Dean Martin, and on the front cover. And there was Jerry Lewis, and what they did, they cut the photo down just to have a Jerry Lewis on the front, and completely cropped Dean Martin out of the picture, and it had Dean Martin, Jerry Lewis, brand new movie coming out, you know, and that was his final movie, and I can't think of the name of it, but when that movie came out, that was it. That was it. Dean Martin said, "That is it. I'm getting shoved across here. I'm going to follow my own career, you know." Blah, blah, blah. So he gave us notice, and of course, Jerry Lewis didn't want to work without Dino. He loved this combination. Yeah. Of course, he was starring and he was having a great time, but he didn't notice the fact that Dino was getting more and more upset about this. So Dean walks off, and it's over. And it was acrimonious, you know. It wasn't a good finish to the whole thing. But Jerry Lewis went on from strength to strength. He wrote the scripts, he directed the movies, and he acted the main character. He was just, and you know, he got round to, by the 1963, he had The Nutty Professor, which is a classic. It's a fantastic movie. I think it's just a classic, you know, comedy movie. And he was the king of comedy, that's what they called him. Of course, he had his dark days, of course, through all this success and everything else. He was in Las Vegas in 1965, doing a cabaret show, and of course he was a clown. He would fall off. He was always falling down on the ground and hurting himself. But he fell off a piano, rolling around in a cabaret show in Las Vegas, and he fell flat on his back, and he got up and he was in agony. But he finished the show and took the bows and everything, good night, and walked off stage, and he was in agony. And he chipped his spinal vertebrae and everything up the back. And they discovered this. He went to the doctors and everything else, and he was in agony. So they put him on a drug, Pecadin, painkiller thing. It's got a lot of morphine in it and so on. And the sad thing is, he gets addicted to that for 13 years. And how he worked it, he became so addicted. He had about several doctors going at once to get the prescriptions because he needed more and more and more. He was taking 7 or 8 pills at a time. He was getting pains in his stomach. He went to the doctor, and he had a huge ulcer inside his stomach, which was about to burst, and he would have died if that had burst, you know, he would have gone. But what happened just before that, he got so depressed with these drugs, he was actually put a gun in his mouth, a .38 revolver, in the bathroom, looking in the mirror, and he went to pull the trigger, and he heard his kids. He was so depressed about this drug addiction, he couldn't stand anymore, because they reckon he became a monster. He was going to pull the gun, and he heard his kids running down the hallway and laughing and giggling, and he thought, I can't do this, you know, my kids. He said, if I hadn't heard them laugh, I had my finger on the trigger, I was going to do it. And he pulled the gun out of his mouth and said, no, that's it, I can't do this, I need help. But he still went on for another couple of years before he really got help.
Shane, that's chapter 1 on the life of Jerry Lewis.
Next week we will continue with
chapter 2
of the 10 chapters.
I'm going to have to slap the
What
table.
a life the man had.
Shane, I can surmise that tonight's song of the week has somehow got a lot to do with
Jerry Lewis.
I'm flying on the plane from Los Angeles to London, and seated right in front of me is a rabbi and a priest. Now, you can't help but overhear what's happening because it's very close quarters on a plane, right? Well, the stewardess is checking to see if people would like to have a drink after we take off, and she approached the rabbi first. She said, Rabbi, can I get you a drink after we take off? The rabbi said, I want a tall Scotch and soda with a twist. She said, fine. Then she approached the priest. Father, may I get you a drink after we take off? The priest was quite indignant. He said, young lady, before I would allow alcohol to pass through these lips, I would rather commit adultery. The rabbi said, hold my order. I didn't know we had a choice. sun shines east, the sun shines west, and I just learned where the sun shines best. Mammy, my mammy, why my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. Mammy, I'm coming, and I am sorry that I made you wait. Mammy, I'm coming, I just hope I'm not late. Mammy, Mammy, I walk a million miles for one of your smiles, Mammy. I didn't know
Great to hear that song about that.
Fantastic. And of course, Jerry Lewis, I mean, he was a classic. And,
Good choice, Shane, good choice.
Wow, a big loss to the entertainment scene because he raised so much money for muscular dystrophy over the years. So many billion, you know, it's like crazy money, 200 billion something, over 45 years with his big telethons in America.
Yes, exactly.
Now, did you know?
No.
Did you know? Nothing,
No chance I'd ever
nothing to
know.
do with his telethon. But our Jerry, he had one big failure. He turned down a movie, a big movie that was huge for Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe.
Yes.
So, Some Like It Hot. And Jack Lemmon took the part, but he turned down that part. And Jack Lemmon took it over. And of course, the movie was a huge success. And I think it's because he reckons he had an affair with Marilyn Monroe and he couldn't face her anymore and all that rest of it. So he turned. What happened though, over the years, Jack Lemmon was so grateful to get the part in the movie because it made him. And he sent flowers every anniversary of that movie's release. He sent flowers to Jerry Lewis to thank him for turning it down. Yeah, and whenever the director saw Jerry Lewis and they would run into each other in Hollywood, etc., he would always walk past him and go, schmuck. Schmuck, because he turned it down. So he had to live with that the rest of his life, you know.
Shane, it leads me to think, can you have a schmuck sausage?
A schmuck sausage. You're the schmuck.
Shane down there on the screen, it says it all. Oh, sterling job on sausage and Shane.
Done it again.
Rockabye, your rockabye baby with a Dixie